Well, Texas A&M should absolutely want Dan Lanning, though there aren't reports to indicate they are looking at him right now. They probably will, but Dan Lanning shouldn't want Texas A&M, and I don't think he will. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, please and thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show, which today is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. What Oregon did well, and some more good news and potpourri for Oregon football coming up later on the show. Lots to get to, but something at the top of minds of a lot of Duck fans right now. I received no less than half a dozen requests to talk about it, or my thoughts on this, that, and the other thing. Texas A&M fired their head coach, Jimbo Fisher. He's paid $75 million to not coach. On the one hand, I would like to be a fired college football coach at a Power 5 program. On the other hand, if I didn't have work to get up and do every day, all I would do is go golf all the time. Gosh darn, that would be horrible. So I look at the situation and say, yeah, of course, Dan Lanning should be a candidate. Does he have any ties to Texas A&M? No. Does he have any ties to the SEC? Yeah, he does. He came from Georgia. We all remember he was defensive coordinator over there. Should Texas A&M want Dan Lanning? Of course they should. Why does everybody like Dan Lanning? Why did Oregon give him an extension and a raise to make him one of the 15 highest paid coaches in all of college football before the season? Because Oregon likes Dan Lanning. Because Dan Lanning, to this point in his college coaching career, is, wait for it, let me just do some math in my head, 19-4. It's pretty darn good. He recruits at a high level. He coaches well. Development has been there. Team chemistry is awesome. You see that video of him after Evan Williams recovered the fumble against USC? Dude, I love that from my team's football coach. There are a lot of reasons to like Dan Lanning. And of course, the SEC is going to be the principal card the Aggies would try to play to allure him over there. The Aggies should want Dan Lanning because he has made himself into a coaching candidate and just a head coach, period. Of course, this is the first time he's ever been a head coach that is one of the best in all of college football. Does he still have room to grow? Of course. But in back-to-back seasons, he has put Oregon in a position to control its own destiny to get to the college football playoff. We'll see how these final 3 weeks play out, hopefully 3 weeks, if all goes according to plan. But he is capable of building a program at a high level. That much is clear. Now, he inherited a good one at Oregon. There's no doubt about that. But just because you're at Oregon doesn't mean you're always going to have success. And Lanning, I think we all agree, shows a lot of high-level traits as a college football coach. So, should Texas A&M want Dan Lanning? Yeah, sure. And just to put everybody at ease at this point in time, no, it will not all the way pass until, Texas A&M announces who their next head coach is going to be. Though I suspect, this is me guessing here, not reporting any inside information, that if they moved on from Jimbo at this point in time, they have an idea of who they want to go after. And I don't know that the timing makes a lot of sense for Dan Lanning because he'd have to get over there before the early signing window, right? That's what the messed up college football calendar is like now. Would Lanning throw in the towel against Oregon State and or Arizona State, lose the game on purpose so that he could justify leaving? Yeah, color me skeptical that he would do that sort of thing. So I don't think Lanning is going to end up there, and I don't think he should want to end up there because Texas A&M is not as good of a job as everybody thinks it is. And Oregon, it has been demonstrated time and time again, is one of the 10 or 15 best jobs in all of college football, probably closer to top 10. I didn't map it out in my head before I made that statement. I did, however, have an idea I was going to make it, and I feel pretty confident saying Oregon is one of the 10 best jobs in the entire country. The Ducks have had 2 losing seasons since the turn of the century. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. They've won conference championships, been to national championship games. They've got a strong brand on the recruiting trail, and generally speaking, like, you can play on big time television games. You can get some benefit of the doubt in the rankings when perception is involved. It's all there. Oregon's got the tools to be a great job, and it is a great job. Off of a game in which Oregon had the fifth largest crowd in Autzen history, which Dan Lanning shouted out, the first thing he said, it was the first thing he talked about when he sat down for his post-game press conference. Man, what an awesome crowd. Gosh almighty, that was great. Dan Lanning has a top 10 class currently in the 2024 cycle, had a top 10 class in the 2023 cycle as well. His salary before the season was bumped up to $7 million a year, with a massive buyout representing the commitment of both the University of Oregon and Dan Lanning to want to make this work. And I think that a statement Lanning made, back last year when the Auburn job came open and Lanning was again tied to it. And I don't think anything is going to get beyond, lists or shows like this one talking about it in the realm of, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible they'd go after him. Who are the top candidates and everything like that? You're going to see a lot of names on the list. We don't actually know where Texas A&M is going, what direction they are headed towards. But if Lanning didn't end up getting hired by Auburn, and now Lanning has been extended, given a raise, and given a much more expensive buyout that represents, as I mentioned, the commitment to want to build something at Oregon, his first head coaching opportunity, which is going very, very well. Consider me skeptical. I'm not saying there's a 0% chance, but consider me skeptical that he would go over to Texas A&M. And something that Lanning, I think, knows is something that he talked about when those rumors were flying around last year, which is the grass is pretty damn green in Eugene. People think it's greener on the other side, but look at every coach that has left Oregon that was a head coach and went to go try and coach elsewhere. Chip Kelly worked in the NFL for a little bit. It flamed out. His team just lost to a previously 2-6 Arizona State team. He wasn't doing that when he was at Oregon. Willie Taggart. I don't even have to say what went on there. Mario Cristobal is down at Miami. Now, I didn't think he was going to go there, but it made sense because it's his hometown. It's where his family's from. It's where his heritage is from. I get it. I completely understand. If you're looking at it from a coaching standpoint, what's a better job, Oregon or Miami? The answer is Oregon. And Mario Cristobal in year 2 at Miami, because he had to start from a place that wasn't as successful as Oregon was, because Miami's not as good of a job and had not been sustained at the standard that Oregon had been for the previous seasons. Cristobal in year 2, he's doing fine. He's not doing as well as Dan Lanning. And I don't think the ceiling down there is as high with Mario Cristobal as it is with Dan Lanning at the helm. I mean, you can even look at Mark Helfrich. Had the 4-8 season, gets fired, goes to the NFL, offensive coordinator with the Bears. Yeah, that didn't work out. So it turns out the revolving door of coaches that Oregon has had recently and throughout the entire century for the last 23 years since 2000, Bellotti, Chip, they've all worked. And I think Lanning, before the year, realized, and the administration realized, this is a really good fit. He recruits really well. I think he likes being there. I think when he talked about, not wanting to have to move his kids, states and schools and everything like that again, I think he was genuine in that respect. So yeah, it's something to follow. But is it something to worry about? No, I don't think so. I think most of the chatter about Lanning to Texas A&M is going to come from, well, he'd be a great hire. Of course he'd be a great hire. Oregon's happy to have him for a reason. But Texas A&M, one of their big appeals is money. They can offer a lot of money and they can just throw a bunch of money at the problem. Does anyone sitting here listening to or watching this show, maybe you're standing up, maybe you're on a run watching or listening, which I appreciate you no matter what. Does anyone think that Oregon is short on funds? Has anyone ever looked at the Oregon football program and thought, man, they could use a little bit more money around there? They can't pay people enough. No, haven't seen it. Lanning's got no ties to Texas A&M. Mario had them to Miami. Yeah, Lanning coached in the SEC, but this is a benefit, though I'm not a fan broadly speaking. This is a potential benefit, I think, of Oregon going to the Big Ten. There's no competitive worry there either. There's no, well, you're playing in a weaker conference. No, Oregon's going to go play in the Big Ten. They're going to be able to compete at a high level, play in big games, recruit at a high level. They got everything that Dan Lanning needs. Dan Lanning at Oregon has got everything that he needs to win a national championship. It can be done. We have seen it. Oregon hasn't won the big game yet, but they've gotten there twice in 2 different playoff systems. No reason that Lanning can't get the program there. I absolutely believe that. Will it be this year? Could. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm excited because Bo Nix is playing at a high level. Oregon's playing at a high level. Did a lot of things really well on Saturday. If you go buy tickets, Game Time's going to do everything well for you because you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, no matter what it is. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even after up to an hour it starts. So after it starts, an hour goes by, you decide, oh, okay, yeah, I do want to go. Game Time's got tickets for it. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Got to be honest with you there, I was kind of running out of breath at the end of that ad read. Like, you might have seen me on YouTube take a deep breath because did not have enough oxygen flowing. We do now. Don't worry. Okay, let's talk about Saturday. What Oregon did well. A lot of things. Not everything, certainly. Penalties, field goal kicking, drops. These were all issues that have to be continually addressed going forward. Nobody's more aware of that than Dan Lanning. I don't think I need to come on here and say, Coach Lanning, you got to clean this stuff up. No, he's very aware. Like I said, guy's a good football coach. But I thought Oregon did a few things in particular really well that make me feel good about the team going forward. By the way, the opening line against Dillingham down at Arizona State is 22.5. Oregon at the line of scrimmage was winning consistently. I saw Jeff Schwartz send out a stat that the offensive line had a 90+% win percentage against USC's front. Oregon had just 2 negative plays that weren't penalties. 2. There was a Bucky Irving carry where he tried to do too much, and USC had good penetration. And I think there was one other negative carry somewhere. That's it. Bo Nix was not sacked. Again, Caleb Williams, on the other hand, was under pressure all the time. All the time. He was sacked 3 times, which is not an easy thing to do. He's like a wet watermelon, man. You can't get him to the ground. You go and you think you're going to be able to pick it up, right? You know, big summer family picnic barbecue. And there's the watermelon, and someone, as a practical joke, has taken the hose and hosed it down. And so then you go over there and you're like, well, I got to pick it up on the table. We got to dice this up, put it in a big serving bowl with a big spoon on a nice 78-degree day in Portland or wherever you may happen to live. And then you go down to pick it up and it slips through your fingers. And you're like, boy, I've picked up fruits and objects heavier than this watermelon before. And then my hands just slipped right off of it. That's what he is, man. He's just slippery. And Oregon still sacked him 3 times. The pressure rate was great. It disrupted their offense. They needed a couple of penalties in order to get 1 or 2 of their touchdowns. I know at least one of them. I don't remember the sequence of events with the Tysheen Johnson pass interference, which was absurd. But Triquez Bridges was pushed off. Brendan Rice pushed off. They didn't call it, and that's a touchdown. Hard to feel bad about that. Hard to blame Triquez for that, who I thought did an admirable job against a really good wide receiver in Brendan Rice. So I thought winning at the line of scrimmage, the defense allowed less than 3 yards a carry to a USC rushing attack that has been a lot better than people realize this year. And Oregon had just 2 negative plays that weren't penalties. Those are really, really good indicators that, you know, it's not like a small thing that Oregon's doing well with big problems to solve. They're doing a lot of big things well. They're winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They're physical. They're tackling well. They're doing a lot of things right. And I thought those were really good things, broadly speaking, for the team on Saturday. Now, not everything went great. The penalty yards, 13 for 120. On my reaction show, I hadn't seen that stat yet, and so I went to the team stats. I saw 13 for 120, and I said, oh boy, it's Texas Tech. It's Texas Tech. Here's the good news, though. In both the Texas Tech and the USC games, if Oregon were not a great team, which they are, they would lose at least one of those games. And you look back and say, man, if you just didn't have that many penalty yards, you would have won. Instead, it's if you just didn't have that many penalty yards, you would have won by more. Okay? That's a great place for a football team to be, saying we didn't win by as many as we should have. That's what playoff teams, that's what national championship caliber teams talk about on a weekly basis. And that's what Oregon's been talking about. Their most complete game to date, 100% at Utah, 35-6. That's what Oregon's gold standard of football looks like, is you play a good team on the road, and it was never close. Oregon took the ball, went right down the field. Defense came out, got to stop. Offense fumbles, hold them to a field goal. Go right down the field, score again. Get the ball back, go right down the field, score again. Against a great defense on the road in a place where they don't lose. That is what Oregon football looks like at its best. But when you're not at your best, which you're not going to be every week, you have to be able to play well enough to win. And they did. And that's why I really like where this Oregon team is at. So, one question that came in, amidst many though, it's time to get into the mailbag. This question came from Blazer Duck. Now, YouTube comments and Twitter are great ways to get into the mailbag. Even better ways, though, because the volume of YouTube comments in particular sometimes can be tricky to navigate. Sometimes I don't check social media as often. If you want to become a Locked On Ducks insider, join the Locked On Ducks subtext community at subtext.com/LockedOnDucks. Free 14-day trial. Then it's just $5 a month. You can talk with me one-on-one. You get priority mailbag access. You get all my immediate reactions and thoughts to breaking news to stay up to date with the Ducks, especially during basketball season. I'm going to watch a lot of the Oregon basketball games. Some of you might not have that as high of a priority. I'll keep you updated over there all the time. So, again, subtext.com/LockedOnDucks or link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This question from a regular question asker. This is Blazer Ducks. He was asking about the Pac-12 refs, and he had a big explosive. Actually, I'm gonna read the comment here. Give me a second, Blazer Duck. He said, "Quote Spencer, I hate Pac-12 refs. I don't think you said it with enough passion. I hate Pac-12 refs. 4th and 4, and the flag was thrown on one of the worst calls I've ever seen. Yeah, that was bad. That was so bad. Refs are supposed to call the game right down the middle, but tonight it looked like Oregon was playing against USC and the refs as they were looking for anything and everything to throw a flag against the Ducks. 13 penalties to just 5 for USC. That screams bias to me. Why do Pac-12 refs suck so much?" Follow-up question. Are the Pac-12 refs going to ref in the Big Ten next year? Please tell me no. The answer is, broadly speaking, no. Every now and then, officials do change conferences. There was an official who had one of the worst calls I've ever seen in the Pac-12 in 2019. Oregon-Washington State, that Camden Lewis game winner against Mike Leach, RIP Pirate. And I think it was Diamador Lenore gets thrown out of the way by the Washington State wide receiver, and he was flagged for pass interference. It's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. The ref who made that call, I believe, is now officiating in the SEC. This is a regular practice, but not a widespread one. So the officials that are in the Pac-12, some of them might decide, I don't need to officiate anymore. But officiating is actually done in a geographical way. So whether in basketball or in football as well, I think football is a little bit different. I know this is how it works in basketball. Crews are actually geographically located, and they'll rotate throughout a couple of different conferences. And that happens sometimes. But each conference is responsible for its own officials. The Big Ten's got its own, and they administer it in their own way. I'm interested to see because, I watch a lot of sports and a lot of conferences. There are a lot of bad refs out there. It's a hard job, and but most of them are not any good at it. That's just the reality of the situation. It's especially frustrating when it's impacting the game, as it did on Saturday in those particular moments. But again, when you're a great team, you're able to overcome that. And Oregon was able to. So, no, they are not coming with us to the Big Ten. And why are they so bad? That starts from the top down. The process by which they teach, coach, and develop their referees has never been good enough. They just have the most hilarious screw ups all the time. It's a hard job. I'm not denying that. There are calls that I watch every week and I go, that's a tough call. I see how he made that live. But then there are instances like, how about the Washington State game last year? Do we all remember that hilarious blunder where they redid the punt because it was third down, but it was fourth down. So they did the punt, but then they pretended like the punt never happened and did it again. I don't even remember that whole fiasco. They do that sort of stuff all the time. Hopefully it'll be better in the Big Ten. That's my hope. That is absolutely my hope. I also hope that Bo Nix ends up winning the Heisman Trophy. That'd be pretty awesome. I'm prepared for that. I'm not prepared for everything in the world because you can't be. And you don't want to be caught unprepared in today's world, which is why you should go get yourself a Jace case. The Jace case from JCE Medical provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jace case is fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions. Doctor-created, doctor-recommended. Don't be caught unprepared in today's world. You just don't want to do it. Supply chain issues, craziness everywhere. You don't want to have that happen. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Go to jacemedical.com to see if the daily medication you want is right for you. You can get a year's supply and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase at jacemedical.com. Bo Nix for Heisman. Please and thank you. Gosh almighty, it would be neat. Nix is now the betting favorites in sports books. That's reflective of a couple things. Number one, he's awesome. He went for over 400 against USC. No interceptions, no fumbles, just great play. He's just fantastic. I really like that guy. And he was getting a little, I don't know what you call it, mojo, little Heisman mojo on Saturday night. There was a certain guest in attendance. You may call him the GOAT. You may call him the Flying Hawaiian. Tim Brando calls him Marcus Mariota because he's unprepared. And I just call him Marcus Mariota, like, a normal person. But I look at Bo Nix and the Heisman odds, and I think it's great where he's at. Still though, even with Bo's great numbers, I think Oregon has to make the playoff. I still have that nagging feeling of, no, I don't think that Bo Nix has been so great. I think Bo Nix's greatness has been personified in the way Oregon has played and the way the offense operates, because his football IQ is 876. He sees things so well. He executes and operates the offense. He's a coach on the field. That's part of what makes him so spectacular. Not that Michael Penix doesn't know those sorts of things. It doesn't, at least perceptually, from a perception standpoint, appear that way, I think, to the rest of the country. Penix just makes some really good throws and puts up, really big time numbers. He went for 330 and a couple scores in their win over Utah. And they've got a tough game this week against Oregon State. But if Bo Nix leads Oregon to wins in the next 2 weeks, which I think he will, and then the Pac-12 championship against Washington, which we'll save that potential prediction for if the game comes, feels like a bad jinx, bad juju to, predict that ahead of time. But if that happens, yeah, he's going to have a real shot. Because when you're the betting favorite and there are only 3 games left for the teams that actually have players that can win the Heisman Trophy, it's a pretty good place to be. It's a pretty good place to be. And 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, yeah, that doesn't hurt. Does not hurt the old Heisman campaign. And he'd be absolutely deserving of it. If Oregon doesn't have to, go to the national championship, win the playoff. Of course, it gets awarded before the playoff games are actually played, which is weird, but it's what it is. If Oregon wins the next 3 games, Bo Nix will win the Heisman. Oregon will be in the playoff, and Bo Nix will win the Heisman. That's what's at stake in the final 3 games, which is crazy to say, but it's crazy awesome. And that's where the program is at right now. So let's get back to the mailbag here. A couple questions. This from earlier last week. This from Aaron. Again, YouTube comments or Twitter. Let me know. I got more mailbag questions I'll be getting to on tomorrow's show as well, but happy to answer them all throughout the week. Aaron says, I love the show, Spencer, and I'm a daily listener and every day are out there. Appreciate you. I will continue to listen for as long as it's available. Well, let me just tell you, the current plan is for this show to be available, hosted by me for a long time. That said, 2 bones to pick. I'm always here for criticism. Hit me with it. I'm a big boy. I can take it. See this skin? 3-inch steel. Thick. First, why give the 2023 Oregon defense praise for giving up a touchdown in the loss versus Washington, but the 2022 defense got lambasted for blowing the game versus Oregon State, despite special teams giving the ball away twice and the offense failing on 4th down and an even shorter field? Well, the first touchdown drive for Oregon State using such little clock in that game was unacceptable. And Oregon State, if you cannot and are not throwing the football, even on a short field, should not be able to move it. Like right now, if I told you that this Oregon defense, you were just going to hand the ball off every single time. You know what they did against Washington this year? When the Huskies tried that inside the 2-yard line, got stuffed on the goal line. Defense didn't have that last year. They got it this year because they're better in the trenches and they're better at the linebacker position. And yeah, special teams played a role last year, 100%, no doubt. But when Oregon State cannot and is not throwing the football, they shouldn't be able to move it. They should be forced to put the ball into the air, and they weren't. That's why the defense gets criticism for that particular game. But I agree. Special teams, give them the ball on the 1-yard line. Okay, you can't be expected to get a stop there a whole heck of a lot. But, you know, after the big kick return, for instance, right? And then the penalty, that was putting the ball like at the Oregon 35-yard line. Why is Oregon State able to easily move the ball? It should have been a lot harder than it was. Special teams and defense absolutely lost the game. You score 34 points, you should win. Second, you've mentioned your distaste for all things related to the 2020 season and how everything that happened during that time is essentially worthless. In the same breath, you mentioned the, quote, most experienced quarterback in the history of college football, that's our guy Bo Nix, who also got 11 games to play to make him the most experienced. Not disagreeing with your takes in either situation, but seems like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So, I mean, that second question is kind of coming at something from 2 different angles here, but Bo Nix playing a game in 2020, you know, does still count towards the, you know, metric that TV stations are throwing out all the time and announcers about, you know, his most experienced, because he is. Here's the other difference. In 2020, the SEC was playing something that resembled college football a whole heck of a lot more than whatever we were doing in the Pac-12. That is undeniably true. And so I don't think about that season a lot. I don't take it into account a ton when I'm thinking about the Ducks and the Pac-12 because, you know, what was the season? They didn't have any crowds in there, and the SEC had limited crowds, and they were playing way more games, and Oregon played, you know, 7. And didn't play Washington and then won the North. Like it was all silly and foolish and weird. And it was better than nothing. But gosh almighty, was it the least enjoyable football season I've watched for the Ducks in my entire life because it wasn't actual football. It didn't feel like football. It didn't look like football because it wasn't, you know, the same thing. And just case in point here as to why I disregard that season, the Pac-12. You know who did well that season? Carl Durrell and David Shaw had a combined record of 8-4. That's how I know it wasn't the most real football there. Bo Nix was playing in the SEC. That Alabama team was really good. They won the national championship. They would have won it no matter what because they had a really good offense, headlined by a Heisman Trophy winner in Devontae Smith and a good quarterback in Mac Jones, who got benched for Bailey Zappi over the weekend. But college pro, we know there's a big difference there. So anyway, hope that answers the question. Keep them coming. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and go Ducks.